Welcome to a special edition of the OO show. Today's going to be a solo show, I think. Uh, Technical difficulties on my end. So we are going to roll on without Troy, without Dan. They are off doing exciting things, and we have a couple back tests to look at. And chat participation will be very welcome. That will help the show move along. So without further ado, let's start the show. Since Troy's not here, we're doing it old school. Here we go.
Every morning at 8:45 Eastern, Option Omega's got your back. Troy's dreaming big like LeBron, mass back testing like a daddy Mac. Dan's 30 years got our way, trading life and markets every day. Option Omega, you're traded home, where every move makes you feel less alone.
All right, we apparently some YouTube issues this morning. Okay, we're in. I got some folks. I see the eyeballs. Thank you guys for tuning into the show today. If you missed the intro, we did the intro old school because Troy is gone. So it's a benevolent dictatorship. Listen, is a benevolent dictatorship the best form of government? That is going to be a discussion for a show in the future, but not today, because a discussion of one with myself is not as interesting. But please, throw your comments. I'll put more on screen than usual today. Can I request an anime intro of the OO show? That's a hard negative for me, unless the one exception I will make is Robotech. If we could do a Robotech intro, I would maybe do that. But no anime in this house. So that's a negative. We do have some show notes today. So without further ado, let's get to the show notes. And this is what we want to talk about. The first note for today, again, since Troy's gone, we're going to do things a little different. And the first note today is the Civil War Minute. We're going to start with this. I'm going to keep it under a minute. Today is I believe it's the anniversary of John Brown trying to start the Civil War, trying to free the slaves with about 24 men, which did not go well. And he raided an armory, Harper's Ferry. And what is interesting, there's a lot interesting about John Brown, but what I find most unique about this whole situation is my favorite character, influence person in this war, not Abraham Lincoln. He would be a close second to General Ulysses S. Grant. How does this relate to today's Civil War Minute? Well, John Brown's father was a tanner. So was Ulysses S. Grant's father. And they actually lived together for a while. So at some point as a boy, John Brown was known by Ulysses S. Grant's father, which I find fascinating. Of all the many people involved, that somehow Sam Grant and John Brown had a connection. I find that fascinating. The first thing we should do today on the show is let's talk, after the Civil War Minute, let's talk about options in the era of Donald Trump. And as you can see, we have some art, and this is hand-drawn art. Obviously, I spent several hours. This is oil on canvas by me, October 15th, last night. If you can't tell, 2026, completely original. This is not AI. And I was just thinking about Trump, we don't talk about him. I don't feel like we talk about him that much. And what I just had one filter that I thought might help folks, because I see sometimes people still get very confused about Trump. And the reason he is dressed like a pirate, sort of, on a pirate ship with a pirate sword, for sure, with a branded pirate sword. If you didn't pick that up, the art of the deal is the sword. Is my son just finished fall break, and he watched too much television. And one of the things he watched is Pirates of the Caribbean. Has anybody seen the Pirates of the Caribbean movies? Chat, is anybody familiar? There are 5 Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I believe there's 5. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but has anybody seen them? One of the main characters in the movies is Captain Jack Sparrow. And what I realized watching this is there's some similarities between Captain Jack, mythological, fantastical, fictional character, and Donald Trump, very real president. And one of the things I realized is people in these movies are continuously shocked by Captain Jack Sparrow. And he's always doing the weirdest, craziest things, right? Like, would you guys agree with that? Is that a fair assessment of Captain Jack? Like, he's kind of a shocking character, and people don't understand him. A lot of people have seen the movies, which is great. Love the original 3. Agreed. I tried to explain this to my son that, like, I think it's kind of like a trilogy and then 2 like baked on movies. And I knew they were successful. I looked up how much money they made. They were very successful. But I just was realizing when I was watching these movies that Captain Jack is always confounding people. And I feel like Donald Trump is also confounding people. And, how does this relate to options? How does this relate to anything? How does this relate to my hand-drawn art? To me, the parallel I want to draw is motivation. And Captain Jack is always basically motivated by mostly one thing, which is himself. And so these crazy things he's doing are usually just an effort to further his own agenda. Transparently so, once you think about it. And I didn't watch all 5 movies. I really was just reading a book and kind of glancing up every now and then. But I realized that there are some similarities, hence my inspired artwork. Because Trump, I'm not saying his motivation is always about himself, but the motivations many times, if you kind of take a step back and think about what he's trying to do, his motivations and his complete, way of doing things on his own, people would call it a lack of decorum, maybe, but or disrespect for societal norms, or at least disrespect for tweets. I think there are some similarities there, and it might help. I've noticed people get very frustrated with Trump. And I think it's really not about Trump. The context I'm talking about, sometimes it's their options trades getting negatively impacted by Trump. But to me, the reason why I thought of this Captain Jack Trump, and I don't know if this still makes any sense, but it just has to do with motivation and thinking about why is he doing what he's doing? And it comes down to what is motivating him in this particular situation. So right now, clearly, China, volatility, upcoming trade negotiations. I don't see that slowing down a lot until this next round of trade negotiations. So I'm not going to be surprised by these supposedly out of left field tweets. They're not going to be out of left field. Trump is doing what he's done for 2 terms, which is negotiating in public. And that's what he does. So not surprising to me. If you watch the Pirates movies, take a look and tell me what you guys think of this filter of Jack Sparrow and his motivations, and context with Trump and his motivations. Gulen has some excellent comments. I agree. I'm not sure he thinks outside the box. I'm not sure if you're talking about Jack-Sparrow or Trump, but I would argue that both of them do. So yeah, if you guys have any thoughts on that, let's get to back testing. And what we're going to do now, I actually am planning on doing 2 back tests. Can you guys handle 2, do you think? One of them is a back test that is a variation of something I've traded for years, and it's applicable because today is Thursday. And if somebody can give me a quick futures check, I checked it earlier. Are futures up and VIX is down, chat? Is that what's going on? Because that's, I actually, as I say this maybe as a informs a future back test. It seems like Thursday lately, it's more up than down in terms of futures. Many times VIX is down coming into Thursday, and we've seen these crazy moves. So let's look at a back test. So I called this the Thursday fun size candy bar. And chat, what is this? This is a really straightforward, simple back test. It is just Thursdays. If VIX is down overnight, and I've got 2 different tranches here, if you will, buying pretty far out of the money, strangle, okay? And then closing it before the end of the day, okay? So this is going to lose almost all the times. And indeed, I can't believe anybody would trade something like this at this allocation. I did this intentionally. Nobody's going to trade through a 96% drawdown, right? Nobody. That's because we're allocating 10%. Okay, so we'll fix that here in a minute. But what's interesting, here's what's interesting. Why would this trade? Now it's won a third of the time. It's won a third of the time. Why would this trade win a third of the time on Thursdays? Shout out to Sujaku. Thank you for the note. VIX is indeed down, futures up 30. The link is in the chat now. And I'm just going to say this, that don't back test this. This is a sample. There's many better variations on this theme, but this is a theme. All I did was this. I waited till after the news, VIX is down, and then once in the middle, once after lunch, okay, you buy this. So here's what's interesting. If you run this with a, let's say there might be people that will actually do this as a 1 lot. So let's do this as a 1 lot and take a look and see how it does. Because again, who's trading through a 96% drawdown? Nobody I know. Nobody I know or probably want to know. Okay. So there you go. Again, this is probably nothing to write home about, but here's the thing. You're going to lose almost all the time. And I have some exit slippage on here. These things, I trade a version of this and have for a while. These things, if Thursday dies, it will be even at 255. It'll be kind of rough to get out of this. So you want to put some exit slippage, which is why I have 10 cents. Oh, we're in SPX. That is not what I meant to do. I actually meant to do it in Qs. This is what I mean to do. Let's try it in Qs, which is what's proper. I'm going to update this. This is what I mean to do. We're going to do this in the Qs, not in SPX. You can do it in whatever, but this back test specifically, that's the fees and the commissions and the slippage should be based on the Qs and not SPX. It's going to change things. There we go. That's more what I was looking for. So let me update this. And that's why I call it a fun size candy bar, because it's a small bet, right? So a lot of times, the reason I put 10 cent slippage on the Qs is a lot of times, yeah, you might not get out of this. Like, even though it's a long strangle at 255, this is going to, there could be times when this is mega far out of the money. Okay. I mean, look at this. So here's the thing. Why would you trade something that has a 0.2 MAR with 1 contract? You probably wouldn't. Like, you probably wouldn't. And that's okay. This is a back test. This is not me telling you to, we never tell you to do anything, but this is especially just me showing a concept. Now, there are variations of this where you can find an even better backtest. And the reason why somebody might want to trade it is you can catch some pretty big winners. Here's 3 in a row. Just a couple weeks ago, there were 3 weeks in a row where this thing did pretty good, right? Or 2 weeks in a row, sorry. 2 of the tranches here did well. Interestingly, one of the tranches here on August 7th did well, one did not. And that's why it goes on a couple times. And that happens. Here's another one where in June, and you can run them both. You can run them as separate tranches. And this is going to lead into our next discussion. So if we just run the 1002, we'll just run the 1002 and then we'll run it again as the 1230. But a lot of folks have commented on the fact that Thursday, just since dailies, has had outsized moves. So here we go. Again, huge drawdown compared to the CAGR, right? But this is a green back test, barely. And we'll look at 12:30 p.m. So right after lunch. And the only requirement, again, is a VIX down move. That's all I'm doing on this back test. You could take that off, and I think it's even worse. But this is going to lead into our next back test, which we're going to use some chat GPT. So if somebody, well, we don't have to use chat GPT. If somebody wants to pull up an LLM, we'll lead into the next one. So you can see the afternoon actually, I think kind of does maybe a little bit better. But the point is Thursdays can get wild, right? And this has me thinking about a concept that I want to talk about next. And I have a slide for it. So let's talk about this concept. Coming back full circle to our tweeting President Trump, and the era that we're living in, which is a very algo-driven trading scene. That's, how many of the trades right now are people clicking a button versus an algorithm deploying it? And these moves can happen outsized. And what I want to talk about is if you look at some of these moves in the back test that we just did, there were some Thursdays that had big moves. Here's a question for the chat. These moves, let's go back to the back test. Okay. So 82 times, 23 winners. Okay. And some of these have been crazy moves, right? So if we look back through for some of these winners, here's one in May. Okay. You went from 26 cents to $4.76 on a Thursday. Here's one in April. Okay. With the exception of Liberation Day, because we've talked about that a lot. Does anybody remember a single Thursday when the market moved huge? Like this date, the market moved huge. Without looking at the back test, I know I have it up. Can you tell me, the market moved big on this day and here was the reason? So think about that, chat. Anybody who's traded Thursdays, traded Ricks, traded Strangles, traded short condors, traded whatever. Have you ever traded when there's been a big move on Thursday? Part one. And part two, can you remember why the move was big? I'll take a sip and I'll give the chat a second to respond. My screen share is only half the screen. Yes, that's okay. We don't even need that up right now. I'm not asking you to look through the back test. I'm saying, have you traded a Thursday where there's a big move? And if you have, do you remember what caused that big move? That's the question. Anybody? Nobody can remember a big Thursday. And that is kind of my point. So here's my point. Here's the full circle. Okay. We live in this age where the computers respond to news instantly. People have algorithms rigged up to Rob. Yes, thank you, Rob. People have algorithms rigged up to respond to news, and the market can move very quickly. And so what I want to talk about is just this concept of what if there was something that happened on a Thursday or any day where that was serious, that actually made the history books. Because here's the question for you. A lot of people have been trading since dailies. Okay, let's assume you've been trading since dailies. Has anything happened during the day since dailies that caused the market to react in a way that's going to really make the history books during the day? What I mean by that is there are events that can happen, and it's been years. The last time was in 2020 during COVID when the market limited down. So the market moved 7% in a day. We almost had a limit down in April for Liberation Day. Okay, so I think you could argue that Liberation Day is going to make the history books. My point is, Liberation Day was telegraphed. It was several weeks, and so was COVID. It was several weeks longer in COVID's case, and the volatility went on for months, right? So what happens if there's an event on a Thursday and you get a move that's much bigger than the ones that you've seen here? How would your portfolio react? That's the question. If the market limited down without giving you a chance to prepare overnight, you're not hedging with futures, you're not you're not prepared. Yes, Rob, most of market movement occurs outside of regular trading hours. Fair. That is one of the advantages of zero DT. My question is what happens in the other 22% of the time? So what if a more rare event happens? How prepared are you? And here's the discussion. Is there a place for a back test for something like this? So here's where I need your help. Does somebody have an LLM pulled up? Give me a random number between 932 and 959. And I'll start a back test while you're doing this. So what we want is a random number between 932 and 959. Chat, put one in the field. You can use an LLM to generate. You actually don't need an LLM to generate it. You could just use a random number generator, but somebody give me a number. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up this back test. And while we're doing that, we don't want that. We don't want that. We're going to change this. And we're going to change this. Okay, 947. Thank you, Joe. All right, I saw Joe first, so 947. Oh my gosh. Okay, great. Thank you, guys. We're going to do Joe's first. I'm making a point with this. Okay, so 947 for Joe. Thank you, sir. And the other thing we need is give me a number between, let's do 25 and 75, rounded to the nearest 5. And I'll take the first number I see. And I'm just making a point here. Going to go since dailies. Okay, so between 25 and 75, rounded to the nearest 5. Okay, rounded to the nearest 5. I can't do 42. All right, Rob, 45. Good enough. Okay, that's perfect. Rob, that was the right answer. We're going to put 5 cents. Here's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about this idea that back testing, I'm running this back test. That back testing, there are certain scenarios where it's very, very useful, certain scenarios where it's a little bit less useful. And I would argue that it's useful nearly all of the time. But one of the things that's challenging is when you're back testing a black swan, there's very few occurrences because of the definition of black swan. This is exactly what I wanted to see. Okay, you guys ready? So these are random numbers. Okay, look at this. This is I did not. You guys saw this is not a magic trick where I asked you guys to get numbers. So this is a completely flat back test. Completely flat. Look at this chaos here. Okay. Wow. One of these just happened. Oh, that was Friday. That was Friday. Let's look at this. So on Friday, there was an option. Quick math. What is this? 50 cents to $97. And this is holding till expiry. That's what that's like almost 200% or 200x. Sorry. Yeah. Here we go. 20,000%. Here's my point. I didn't plan this out. I didn't know what you guys were going to say. Let's try it again. Let's try with different numbers. 35. Okay, so we'll do 35, and then let's look at a different time. The second time, Joe Manfred said 9:39. Okay, so we'll do 9:39. So now we're doing 35 cents, and I am putting 5 cents of slippage on here. Okay, so if we take the slippage off, let's just take slippage off for this one. And we'll see what it does. I'm also contract capping this at once. Okay. And that's intentional. And here's my question while we run this back test. Nearly identical. Nearly identical. This is just, I don't have an answer for this. It's just a posit. Again, wow. You're going to lose all the time. You're going to lose all the time. Is there a place for a back test that is simply drag on your portfolio, but is hedge? That's the question. And this is just a downside hedge. So the day in April when Trump tweeted, now is a good time to buy, and the market ripped 10%, this would be wasted money. Most days, this would be wasted money. Here's the point though. I had no idea what you guys were going to say, and it kind of worked out as a perfect example because the back tests are not good. Like those are not good back tests. Like that's a flat back test. Who makes money on that? The market makers make money. Like the brokers make money. They love that. But I just want to ask the question. I'm not going to answer it because this is you. This isn't me. This is something I'm working on for myself. Is there a place for hedges that don't even have a positive back test? And maybe you always expect to lose, but could they make your portfolio more resilient? We get this question in the Discord a lot of, hey, I ran 2 back tests and the back test was good, but my portfolio is worse. That's correct. That's portfolio construction. So my challenge to the chat is simply this. Is there a spot in your portfolio for a back test, a strategy that is simply drag? But if we actually had an event that the market, and I'm just making sure this back test, I have no conditions on this. This is every day, no condition. If the market had a catastrophic event intraday, as Rob pointed out, they don't happen as much intraday as when the market's closed. So the futures, the vol, all that has time to digest it. But we live in an age where if news happens, you're going to know about it instantly. And the market would make a 20-point candle look small if there was something that was going to make the history books. And I don't know what that could be. I have no idea. There are multiple wars going on. There are multiple prominent political leaders that are extremely divisive at any point in history from here moving forward. Is there a place in your portfolio for something that's negative expectancy, but might hedge it? And that's a question for the 0-day folks. I did one that's 0-day. Let me know what you guys think. It's going to be an abbreviated show today. We did a couple back tests. We did a Thursday candy bar. We did a randomly generated chat back test. Shout out to all you guys who gave numbers: Rob, Manfred, Glenn, Joe. Rob made a point. I wasn't going to get that specific, but he's right. Trump was shot at twice. He was shot once. It was on a Sunday. I think it was on a Sunday. If that had happened during the market, what do you think would have happened? Maybe it was a Saturday. It was the weekend. I know I'm 90% sure it was on the weekend. What would happen if you were trading 0-day? What would happen to your stops if that happened? Just something to think about. And again, is there a spot in your portfolio for something that is going to be a drag on your portfolio, And the back test even may convince you, hey, this isn't a great thing. But let's look at it. Final thought: you can tweak these numbers. I mean, this is 35 cents, no slippage, 35 cents. So what's that going to cost you? What's that going to cost you in a year? Like $7,000 maybe of drag. That could be a ton for some people. I mean, that's a big number, right? And I'm doing that. I'm figuring about, 200 or so trading, 250 trading days a year, 7-8 grand, something like that. Could that drag on you? Yes. However, you might even do this. You might take this wonderful world-class backtester, build a backtest like this, and run it through your portfolio. Because maybe you're somebody that trades a lot of condors, and maybe this backtest, which really doesn't have positive expectancy, maybe something like this actually makes your portfolio more resilient. Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We're going to end this one a little bit early since it's a solo show. Working on, maybe we'll have a guest tomorrow. I'm going to try to coax Rusty out of the mines tomorrow. I know it's more exciting when we have more than one person on here, but I hope you guys liked the show. Thanks for chatting. Great chat as always. Have a good one. Stay safe out there. Thursday.